In the end, what customers really want is to know that the developer is going to deliver the product. In that, we have a 100% track record. The last couple of years have been extremely strong, the real estate market. I'm talking about pre-crisis, we had some very strong years. Obviously, the financial crisis, put a dampener on all of that. However, what has happened is that everyone who had invested in real estate pre-crisis, they've had the best performing asset class. So over the last couple of years, real estate has been the best performing because from all asset classes, it's probably the only one that's maintained its value or even increased its value after considering inflation. So for example, in our current project, people who have bought have almost doubled or more than 2.5 times their investment. So in real terms, they've managed to beat inflation. If you ask me going forward, what the scenario is, medium term, there is now, due to the financial crisis, there's been a lot of projects which were not properly financed or managed have gone bust. A lot of the smaller, less organized developers have stopped functioning. So there is going to be a massive shortage of housing over the medium term, next 2 to 5 years. So I see the developers that are actually currently capable of delivering products, they will see a good increase in asset prices. So in general, medium term, decent time to buy right now before the crunch in the market actually hits. Under the current conditions, honestly, we've been pretty cautious in terms of starting new projects because our first goal was to wait for the inflationary cycle to play out. It's only once the inflationary cycle plays out and we have an understanding of what prices are going to settle at that we can actually price new projects. I think that cycle has been reached. I think we're expecting the IMF and the bailout package to happen at the course of this year. And I think most people would agree that the worst of the crisis is done. We're now back on the recovery path. So we have tentatively begun to restart a couple of new projects we had in mind. Currently, to manage the situation in terms of the inflation, is we're pegging our pricing to dollars. So our buildings will go somewhere around $170 to $180 to $220 a square foot. And that's allowed us to kind of maintain price despite the volatility in the market. Yeah, I mean, we just have a very simple value proposition that we offer. It's that for the price you pay per square foot of our projects, you get more than you get anywhere else. So what we really focus on is on the engineering part of a building. So our buildings are extremely efficient, which allows us a much lower cost base than some others. And we're also very focused on the entire holistic living. So what we offer in terms of amenities kind of takes care of all your needs as a family. There's things for children, there's activities for seniors, there's activities for business people, there's activities for homemakers. So the building actually comes packed with amenities from guest rooms to gyms to squash courts to health spas, so that the customer never needs to actually go out anywhere. It becomes an enclosed space, especially important now after the pandemic. People have really begun to appreciate having things close to home. Work from home has become a big thing. Our buildings are designed for that. So, and all of this at an extremely strong value. It's not that our buildings are ridiculously priced or super expensive. They're actually what we really call affordable luxury. And that's really our goal, is to figure out how to take everything a modern life needs, build it in an efficient way, and then pass that efficiency on to clients so they can invest in a home at a decent price. I mean, the crux of what we do is we try and offer the best value per square foot of any apartment in the market. And how do we do this? There's two things we focus on. One is the efficiency of the building, and second is the lifestyle of the customer. So we are an engineering first company. We do all our designs, all our engineering in-house, and we pay attention to like every single, bend of the pipe and the location of the wiring, every square foot, to ensure the buildings are efficient and that the construction techniques are efficient. This allows us to construct at a cost which is efficient, and we can pass that on to customers in terms of lower costs. That's one part of it, the cost equation. Then there's the product equation. What we have uniquely done is build buildings that cater to every aspect of the customer's life. So it's packed with facilities and amenities. We have things like squash courts, gyms, guest rooms, office spaces, kids' play areas. So every part of the family that lives there, from the small kid to the teenager to the adult, to the work from home parent to the homemaker to the senior citizens living there is something for all of them. And especially post-pandemic, people realize that it's important to have things within reach of where you live. The whole concept of remote working has become global. So our buildings are already designed for all of that. So all these amenities, along with this efficiency, allows us to build a truly affordable luxury product. So our prices aren't on a per square foot basis. What we charge for what we offer, I think, is the best value proposition in the market. And that's why our customers have always been loyal to us. That's really been our success factor. And that's why almost 30% of our stock, every time we open a new building, goes to people who have bought before, because they know the value of what it is. The other important thing is that the margins that we take on our development, we keep them very reasonable so that we pass on most of the efficiency to our clients. Also, for what we have found is in most of our developments, the appreciation from the time the building starts to the time the building is delivered is normally 40, 50, 60%. So our buyers see gains right away. I think the most important thing is, in the end, what matters is your stability and your ability to actually deliver the product. We've had some high profile failures in the market, and in the end, what customers really want is to know that the developer is going to deliver the product. In that, we have a 100% track record. In our 50-year history of the company, we've never failed on delivering a project. Even through this current crisis, the Easter bombings, the political instability, the COVID crisis, the current currency crisis, all of that. And I think in the end, we were about 7 months delayed, on a 3.5-year project, which is at a time when, half the project didn't even finish. So, things like that. We're very conservative about the way we capitalize projects. We don't move money from one project to the other. Everything is ring-fenced. We ensure that we have more than enough capital to complete projects. So that stability and the knowledge that, whatever happens, this building will come up, is what the real, I think, faith that our clients have, and what makes them choose us over other developers. The real thing is to figure out which are the critical industries. Real estate, I think, is one of them, because that's the largest store of value for individual investors, and figure out how to make real estate affordable for the end consumer. Right now, we are burdened with a lot of taxes, import duties. A lot of the benefits that were there earlier have been pulled away. So what's going to happen is that these costs are going to end up getting passed on to customers. Construction costs in Sri Lanka are already amongst the highest in South Asia, simply because a lot of materials need to be imported. And that puts it a little out of the reach of the average middle class, upper middle class Sri Lankan buyer. And with a little bit of adjustment, we can bring real estate prices to a more realistic. We can allow developers to build projects that are targeted towards a lower or a middle income audience. Right now, everything is being built for a mid to high kind of audience. With a little bit of rationalization of customs duties, taxes, we can actually start building housing for the middle class. And that's, I think, where the real change occurs. That's what we've seen in India and China. The economic booms have been on the back of massive real estate booms. They always go hand in hand. So I think a little bit of thinking around that aspect would help long-term, not just real estate, but the overall economy and the middle and upper middle class consumer. Important thing right now is to understand, I think the message I want to send is that real estate is, in times of crisis or in difficult times, real estate is really the best asset class, because it protects you from inflation. It is the one asset class that always tracks inflation. So anyone who was invested in real estate, that investment was not affected by any of the inflation or the currency devaluation that we saw. Currently, I see a good future. I see a real lack of supply, and fundamentally, Colombo has a shortage of housing. Colombo is the least urbanized of all major cities in South Asia. It has some of the largest transit times for people to get to work. So the vertical development of Colombo is something which is just, it has to happen, and it will happen. So real estate in the medium to long term, I'm extremely bullish on Colombo as a place that will develop more and more sophisticated as a real estate market.